Hello, YouTube. Today we're kicking off the first video in my efficient prepping series. We're going to talk about food. Okay. There's a lot of different things to consider about it, but before we get into that, I want to remind everybody that we are going to take the 80-20 approach to prepping. That's what we're going to do. I had one of my patrons on Patreon remind me that this is called Pareto's Principle. Okay. I first learned about this from Tim Ferriss, a long time ago when he came out with his first book, The 4-Hour Work Week, which is a great book, by the way. All right, but I heard about it then, and that's when I read about it and realized I had been using this principle in my life all the way from being a child up. Didn't always work out good for me as a kid when you're using 80-20 on your chores. All right, but it's basically what the rule is that 20% of the work you do produces 80% of the results. Okay, so I've applied this to my life in a lot of ways, and what I do is I do more of the 20%. Okay, I try not to focus on the 80% of the work that produces 20% of the results. So we're going to use Pareto's Principle in every single video about efficient prepping. That's what we're going to do. All right. We're going to do it as easily as we possibly can. We're going to try and be as efficient as we possibly can. And we're going to do more of that. And we're going to do it with the least amount of time spent. All right. So you guys can jump right on this. And I also could have done a lot of videos first instead of food. But food, if I cover food right now, it allows you to jump on food right now. All right. So first, what we're going to discuss is how much food are we talking? Like, what is the end goal with this? Okay. And for me personally, and you're going to have to decide on your own what you think about it, because shit hit the fan means something different to different people. Okay. My own personal perspective and how I feel about it is that I think it is best to prepare for basically 2 years, 2 hard years. Now, what I'm not telling you is that you need 2 years of food storage. Okay, I'm not telling you that. There's a lot of guys that are going to watch this video that are really good at hunting. Okay, I'm going to cover hunting in a separate video, although it is food related. But, and those guys are going to need to understand that hunting pressure is going to be very high. So it's going to make it much more difficult to put especially big game on the table. Okay, but if you can hunt, or if you do have farm animals, or you can snare, big one, right? You guys know that with me. Okay. That's going to supplement your food. Right now, you have to know that your skill is to a level that you can rely on it. All right. And you also, in a different video, I'm going to cover gardening. You also need to be prepared to garden. That's going to help you get through these 2 years. But I see it being 1 year that is gnarly, especially the first 3 months. Okay. And then another year of recovery where communities are beginning to talk and people are starting to trade again, and we're trying to rebuild things. Okay. I know it's kind of a generic approach, but I think it's a pretty good, basic rule to follow with this. All right. So if you want to just be ready for a year, then just do that. Okay. And if you don't hunt, if you can't snare, then yes, you're going to want to start building up better food stores than people that can do those things. All right. I've got meat animals here. I've got chickens. I've got goats, sheep, guineas, and rabbits. All right. So I don't even have to do all that much hunting, to be honest with you, to put meat on the table for these 2 years, as long as someone doesn't come through and steal my shit. All right. But that's how I want you guys to think about it. Okay. 2 years. All right. Next, while purchasing food. Okay. And this is going to make this so easy. All right. What you're doing is you are buying food you already eat. Okay, that's what you're purchasing. Now I'm going to give a couple examples of this, okay, to kind of help you make some decisions, because, every household eats a little differently. All right. And so for the first example, we're going to say you've got a small family, right? Your wife, your kids, okay, and you guys eat a lot of convenience foods. Okay, you do Stouffer's lasagnas and chili out of a can and soup out of a can and stuff like that, right? And maybe you do ramen here and there, order pizza here and there, that kind of stuff. Okay. What you're going to want to do is just like if you guys eat chili out of a can regularly, right? Then you're going to buy extra chili. All right. Or you're going to buy cans of the ingredients to make chili, which offers you some additional versatility when it comes to fleshing out a meal, especially if you're part of a group. You could go ahead and end up with 500 cans of chili, but dude, that shit's going to start crushing morale after a couple months of living on chili. All right, so think about it like that, okay? But you would go ahead and buy yourself extra chili when you find it on sale, right? You'd go ahead and buy yourself extra canned soup when you find it on sale. You'd purchase extra ramen when you find it on sale, okay? The stuff you already use. That's what you need to be buying. And this is part of the reason why you can't lose with this, okay? Because you're just going to eat this shit eventually anyways. You might as well buy it while it's cheaper, right? Now, let me give you another example. We're going to use my household as an example, okay? When we go to the store and we stock up on stuff for the next 2 weeks, our shopping cart is mostly full of meat and vegetables, fresh vegetables, okay? After that, next to that would be dairy, all right? Not as much dairy, and then a very small amount of processed food or canned food, all right? So when we're stocking up, because you obviously can't store fresh produce, right, for shit hit the fan, right? And you can store fresh meat if you can it. We'll get into that a little bit later, okay? But when we go through and we stock up on stuff, also dried goods, excuse me, I almost forgot about that. There will be some dried goods in our cart, and it's usually going to be rice or flour. It's not going to be beans as often, okay? So when we stock up on stuff for SHTF, what we're purchasing is we're purchasing stuff in cans that we would have bought fresh normally, okay? We're purchasing the same dried goods that we normally purchase, like rice and flour and a little bit of beans. I have more beans right now than I need, okay? Because I ended up buying a whole shit ton of it, like a couple of years ago. And I was like, man, we don't eat that many freaking refried beans, or pinto beans. So, but I have it. It's there, At any rate, you want to purchase stuff that you're going to use, that you use already, okay? Next, I'm going to get into purchasing the pre-packed survival shit, okay? Or, sealing a whole bunch of dried goods in Mylar and buckets and stuff like that. Guys, you don't need to do that shit. You don't need to do it, okay? That's one of the things that makes it hard for people to get into food storage, is that you're going to pay a premium for this stuff, generally speaking, unless you're doing it yourself. And if you're doing it yourself, it's more time consuming, right? So you're either paying a premium or it's more time consuming. Okay, and third, once you prep that stuff like that, you get it all sealed up in Mylar bags and buckets and all this kind of shit, and you got friggin' wheat berries, right? So you can grind it with flour. It's like, now you got to buy yourself a grinder, okay? And you don't want to open that stuff. You're just like, I'm just going to put it somewhere, and store it. Maybe in your crawl, or wherever it is. And you don't want to touch that shit ever. You just want to let it sit there, right? Next thing you know, 20 years go by, and it's like, you're following the general rules of prepping, and, oh, maybe my shit's bad, I need to replace it all. Okay, which is a waste, guys, all right? What you want to be doing is purchase stuff you use right now, and you want to keep track of when you bought it, and you want to rotate it through and use it. That's what you want to do, okay? And then you want to replenish it with the same stuff, okay? So basically, you just have this revolving door of prepper shit that you're buying and using and buying and using and buying and using, okay? And I'll get into something else real quick. When it comes to the sell-by dates, okay, and how long food lasts, it is the time frames you get, especially from manufacturers, This shit lasts way longer than that. Okay, dudes, it just does. It does. All right. You can buy Bob's Red Mill flour sealed in a bag, and the manufacturer tells you it's going to last 2 years in that bag. This is already pre-ground flour. And we use a lot of flour. My wife makes homemade pasta and homemade bread because morale freaking matters, guys, right? Also, flour is very versatile. Don't even need a grinder, you know. But yeah, it's, you want to just rotate through your shit, okay? And so when you purchase things, it may be necessary to write a date on it, but it's probably even easier to store things you purchased in a month in a specific bin with a date, like a month and a year, okay? Now, let's talk about the bins real fast. Guys, go to secondhand stores, estate sales, garage sales, shit like that, okay? You can buy these bins brand new at Walmart, but you're generally looking at like anywhere from $20 and up for like a good Rubbermaid bin, okay? But I have found all kinds of bins at local secondhand stores for like $4 or $5. All right. It's one extra stop when you go to town, but you can get a lot of good deals in a secondhand store, dudes. Okay. And especially, it's like, do you need a brand new bin? You're just going to throw food in it and put it in a freaking closet or a crawl space or whatever, right? Okay. All right. So next, let's get into what type of goods and how I would recommend going about purchasing this stuff. Okay. So first off, guys, when shit's on sale, that's when you buy it. And you pay cash. Okay? Don't put this food on credit because you're kind of hosing yourself right there. In the intro video, I talked about, part of my argument as to why people should be prepping right now. Okay? And it's because of the trajectory of the dollar, right? Like if you buy it now, it's going to be more expensive in 6 months. Let's say 10% more, right? Well, if you're buying it on credit and you're paying, 20% or 30% interest on purchasing that food, it's like you've just removed the savings you made by purchasing it 6 months early, right? Or a year early, okay? So buy this stuff cash, all right? So you can take advantage of those savings later. That's one of the things you want to do, okay? And the sales, like I was saying. When you see that chili that you like, or a chili that, you're okay with, or the ingredients to make a chili, right? Like your kidney beans, your freaking corn, like, whatever you like to put in your chili, okay? Tomatoes, okay? Buy that shit when it's cheap. Buy a whole bunch of it, all right? And you don't have to, if you go buy 20 cans of tomatoes, are you going to put them all in one bin and mark them all for that month? You know what? You just don't have to be that anal about it. All right, dudes, you can kind of spread that shit out a bit. It's not going to hurt, man. Canned goods will actually last for years and years, okay? And you all probably know the rules to check and make sure that shit's good and make sure it's not good before you eat it, okay? But yeah, I mean, we're talking 2 years, right? 2-year rotation. So if you end up having some canned tomatoes that are 2.5 years old, you're fine. All right, you'll be just fine. Next, let's talk about the actual types of foods that you need to be thinking about. And I'm going to throw out a couple of specifics that I think are important. Okay, so one of these is like wet foods. All right, so foods with a high moisture content. We're generally talking like canned stuff or stuff in jars. All right, so you're definitely going to need to have some of that stuff. Obviously, you don't just want to do shit hit the fan on dried goods. You don't want to, guys. Rice will get really old really fast. Okay, and morale's important. All right, so you're looking for variety. You're looking for options. Okay, my wife does the massive majority of our cooking, and I talked to her about this morning while going for our hike. And she was like, cream of mushroom, man. Tell him to get cream of mushroom. And she doesn't even use it all that much, right? Anymore, because she is like gotten huge into like French cooking and gourmet cooking. And so she makes everything from scratch these days. But she just, it's versatile. And when we were on the road, living off grid for a whole shit ton of years, it's like, Cream of mushroom, one of the big things. All right, but you need to have some wet storage stuff. And you obviously want to store this stuff where it's not going to freeze over. All right, I have seen some comments where dudes are like, oh, if your cans freeze, it'll pop the seals. You know what? I have some cans out in the barn, more than a few, okay, that froze over last winter and nothing's gone bad. Do I want to continue doing that? No, I don't. Right? Because it's just like meat, right? Do you want to eat meat that's been frozen and thawed over and over and over again? You don't, okay? So, find a decent place to store your wet goods, especially shit in jars, because those will break, right? Okay, dried goods. Personally, I feel like dried goods, that you do want to have more dried goods overall. And that's because it's easier to keep them. Very low moisture content. You're not likely to have a lot of it go bad. Okay, now, this would also mean at the same time you'd have to kind of adjust what you eat and eat more dried goods. Is that necessary? Not really, but I mean, if you've got rice that's 2 years old and it's come up, it's time for you to eat it, and it's more rice than you're going to eat in a month, is it going to hurt you to throw it in the next bin over? It's not, right? Or is it going to hurt you to stack some of it in the corner of the closet and keep it there, just to be safe? It's not, because it's just not that big of an investment, all right? And let's say it's 2 years old and rice now is 25% more expensive, right? You've already made enough savings in the rice you've eaten over the last 2 years to kind of wash whatever you haven't had, if it were to go bad, which is not going to go bad in 2.5 years, guys. Okay, so, I personally buy more dried goods than what we go through in a month. Okay. Next, let's talk about morale, because morale is big. Morale is really, really big, dudes. Okay. You got to have those morale items with you. So let's use coffee, for example. Right. We can say sugar, spices. I'll tell you guys what. I got a shit ton of money invested in spices and morale items, okay? Because that shit matters. Buy it when it's cheap. Buy the spices that you use, okay? I'm going to throw out a little tidbit about rabbit real quick. Rabbit is excellent when treated with heavy spice. Okay, curry. My wife does a rabbit al pastor with the chilies. Man, it is so good with heavy spices. And if you're in a situation where you're going to be eating a lot of rabbit, I'll tell you what, man, that shit's going to get old if you're just cooking it and you don't have anything to rub on it. All right? So think about the spices. Like I said, stuff you use, okay? Or stuff you are going to use, or stuff you like. Like if you don't cook a lot of curry at home, but you like curry, you know what? You see it on sale? Pick up some curry, Just don't make a giant investment in it. All right, and then the last category really is going to be like food preservation stuff. Okay, we'll call it that. So you're going to want to make sure you have salt. And I have not salted an entire pig yet. Okay, we are probably going to be getting pigs in the spring, and I'll be able to pass down what I learn in that experience to you guys. Okay, but I've read the Firefox books, and they say 20 to 30 pounds of salt to cure an entire pig. All right, so what does that mean to you? Okay, well, the average family in the Appalachians back in that day went through 2 pigs a winter. All right, 2 whole pigs. Okay, so if you're hunting for your family and you're going to preserve big game with salt, you can pretty much expect to use 20 to 30 pounds of salt per deer carcass, and you'll need 2 of them if you're going to salt them and store them and keep them throughout the winter. Makes sense, right? Probably actually a little bit less, because deer's not so fatty. I imagine the salt is going to be a little more effective in curing the meat, okay? Not to mention you could also use some other means. But guys, salt is cheap as shit. Okay, it's super cheap. All right, so I've got like a couple 100 pounds right now, and so what you can do is you can find those stores that sell this shit in bulk. Usually they're going to sell salt in like 25-pound bags. Okay. Buy yourself a 25-pound bag every so often. I want to say it was probably about $20. I haven't bought any for a while, so I might be off on that now. But it's not like unaffordable. You know what I'm saying? So definitely get some salt stored up. And cans. Let's talk about cans. At these estate sales or secondhand stores, it's usually not too hard to pick up, a freaking kettle for canning. Okay? Or a big pot, whatever you want to call it, right? But it shouldn't be hard to pick those up. I got one in Goodwill. It was years ago. We're still using the same damn one. All right? And canning jars, they can be kind of pricey, but you'll see them on sale sometimes. And honestly, guys, you're probably better off going with quart size. If you want to can up more stuff more rapidly, usually the canning kettles, they'll usually fit 7 quart-sized jars. So a flat of quarts is going to be 12 quart-sized jars. So it's enough to run through 2 batches of canning right there. Okay. And another thing about canning is a lot of people talk about, you got to have a pressure cooker and all this shit to can meat. That is not true. All right. You can can meat without a pressure cooker, but you're looking at 3-hour hot water bath. And you're looking at making sure you pack that meat in that jar so that there is the minimal, you don't want any air in it. Okay. But it can be done. All right. And so I absolutely on the salt. Dudes, absolutely on the salt. But at some point in time, you're definitely going to want to get into jars and canning. So if you see them at a good price, it's not going to hurt you to pick up a half dozen flats of quart-sized jars. Okay. It could mean the difference between making it through a winter and not making it through a winter. All right. Okay, next, let's talk about the budget. All right, budget with this. Guys, don't break yourselves. All right, we all have shit we have to pay for, and so, I would come up with a budget that's realistic regarding additional food you're willing to purchase every month. For some of you, it's going to be $25, but $25 is going to be better than nothing if the shit goes down. And 3 months of food storage is going to be better than nothing when the shit goes down, right? Okay, so you might as well get cracking on it. And, $50 will help you build up things a lot faster, especially if you're going for the sale items, dudes, the sale items. Now, I'm not even talking about going around and looking for all kinds of shit at discount stores and stuff like that. I'm talking about doing your regular shopping. And then you're like, oh, stewed tomatoes are freaking, that's a good price. Like, I'm going to pick up a dozen cans. That's what I'm talking about doing. Okay. Lastly, let's talk about storage real quick. All right, where are you going to put this shit? For a lot of us, we got some space in a closet somewhere. You don't have to dedicate a lot of room to it or space in a crawl, right? Oh, my eyes freaking bugging me. Space in a crawl, space in a shed, right? That kind of thing. I am going to do a separate video on caches. Okay, guys, because, a lot of people are like, I'm not even in the right location. Like, why is he talking about food? There's other things I have to do first. No, right now you need to start working on food. Okay, I'm going to talk about location later because you probably have an idea, like a spot picked out already that you would head to if things got gnarly, And so I am going to end up doing a cache video because you can take this stuff out there, your canned goods, your dried goods, all of it, and bury it below the frost line in a bin, and it's still going to be there when you get out there and you need it. Okay? But for now, we're talking about storage around the house, right? A closet somewhere where you've got some extra space, a crawl space. You don't want to put food in the attic because they tend to get hotter and shit in the summertime. And it will reduce the quality and, and basically dick up your food fast. Okay. yeah, I think that gives you guys a pretty good idea of what I'm suggesting you start with and how to get cracking. Okay. So I hope that helped you guys out. Like, share, subscribe. If you're not a subscriber already, consider supporting the channel on Patreon. I'm doing a snare giveaway for dudes on there right now. So, you know, I'd like to do giveaways every single month for people that are helping fund the channel. Okay. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it and you're going to follow along. And, you know, the next part should be coming up fairly rapidly. See y'all later.